Okay, here's a pretty useful example of the Pythagorean theorem. So a lot of times when you're building a deck or a structure, putting in a foundation, you need to be sure that it's square. And so in this case, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting in an 8 by 10 foundation for a shed. So it's going to be 8 by 10. Now the problem is it needs to be perfectly square on all these corners when you put this in. Otherwise, when you put your plywood down, even if you're off by a couple of inches, and maybe if you had, something like this going, instead of being square when you put your plywood down, it's not going to line up very good. And this is an exaggeration, but even being off 1 or 2 inches, it'll make a mess of your structure. So the easy way to do this is to, kind of get your foundation almost where you think it needs to be. And then what you'll do is you'll determine what this length is right here, okay? And this length and the length here are going to be the same, by the way. Doesn't matter if it's square, they should both be the same length. So we're going to use Pythagorean theorem. What it's going to be is this is C or H squared. So we got A, we got B, and we got C. Let's say this is feet. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So we have A here as being 8 feet, and we're going to square that, plus B, which is 10, and we're going to square that, and that equals C squared. So let's do it. 8 times 8 is 64, plus 10 times 10 is 100, equals C squared. Add these two together, we get 164 equals C squared. So now, in order to get the number here, what we have to do is we have to take the square root of each side, because that cancels out the square here and just gives us C, okay? And so we have to take the square root of 164. So if I take 164 and I take the square root, I get 12.806. 12.806. So it's pretty close to maybe 7/8 or something like that. You'd get a fraction because it'd be using a ruler, okay? Feet. And so what you do is you would just measure from here to here, and you would want it to be equal to 12.806 inches. And you just would kind of keep moving it back and forth until it equaled that. And then what you do is then you would check from this corner to this corner, and then once that equaled 12.8 as well, then it would be perfectly square, and you could put cement your posts in or whatever you need to do to get it perfect. And then when you came back and you wanted to add the structure, you'd find that everything would be perfectly square and that this thing would work out just perfect.